Hello and welcome to this Energy Saving Trust webinar being run by the Green Heat Installer Engagement Programme, the path to upskilling the insulation industry. Today we will hear from Energy Skills Partnership and West Lothian College on the Scottish Government's recommended skills requirements for insulation and a recognised qualification that will help towards obtaining PAS2030 and TrustMark registration. My name is Rachel Comrie. I am an Assistant Programme Manager for the Green Heat Installer Engagement Programme here at Energy Saving Trust. So our panellists for today are Pilar Rodriguez, the Green Heat Installer Engagement Programme Manager at Energy Saving Trust, John Rennick, at the Sector Manager in Construction at Energy Skills Partnership, and Stephen Morrison and Louise MacDonald, Learning and Skills Managers from West Lothian College. So for this webinar, you can hear us, but we cannot hear you. This is perfectly normal for webinars, so don't be alarmed or worry about any background noise wherever you're watching this from. You'll have the opportunity to submit questions to our panellists by typing your questions on the questions pane of the control panel. These won't be visible to other listeners, but we will see them. To get the webinar's control panel, please press the orange arrow on your screen. If you're using a phone to watch this, there will be a question mark on your screen that you will press to ask questions. We will provide a question and answer session at the end once all panellists have presented. You can ask questions at any time during the webinar, however, they won't be addressed until the Q&A session. Due to the nature of webinars and internet speeds, you might notice a slight change in audio quality as we vary our presenters. However, we are recording today's webinar, so should you have any connection issues, it will be available to watch back. We will send out a link of the recording afterwards. Please note, no personal details will be seen in the recording. It's only the presentation and the presenters that will be recorded. Likewise, the presentation slides will be available for you to view a few days after the webinar has finished. Lastly, you can have your say at the end of this webinar. There will be a short feedback survey after the webinar has finished that should only take a few moments. Please complete this if you can so we can continue to improve the support that we offer. If you do not have time this afternoon, the survey is included in our follow-up email, which you should receive tomorrow. I will pass you now on to Pilar Rodriguez from the Energy Saving Trust.
Thanks, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. On the next slides, I will briefly introduce you the opportunities and challenges presented to the insulation sector by the decarbonisation targets that we are committed to achieve here in Scotland by 2045 and by the current consultation on the Heating Buildings Bill that is open until the 8th of March. My name is Pilar Rodriguez. I work for the Energy Saving Trust. We are an independent organization working to address the climate emergency. My role is to manage the Green Heat Installer Programme, which is fully funded by the Scottish Government to support installers working in the energy efficiency and renewable technology sectors. As part of this work, we are delighted to have today ESP and West Lothian College presented today on the skills, qualification and pathways for both new entrants and experienced workers within the insulation sector. Just to mention that it's a correction from, we're not presenting today on TrustMark and PAS2035, but we will next week if you want to join us. So this is the first part that we're doing today, is focusing on the qualifications and pathways that are available for, as mentioned before, new entrants and experienced workers within the insulation sector. As all of you will know by now, Scotland has a legally binding target to achieve net zero by 2045. The way we heat our homes, workplaces and other buildings is the third largest cause of greenhouse gas emissions in Scotland. Polluting heating systems like gas and oil boilers need to be replaced by clean heating systems like heat networks, heat pumps, or electrical heating. The current rate of switching to clean heating is far short of what is needed to reach our climate change targets. At the current pace, it will take several hundred years to reach net zero. So the Scottish Government has taken action to support more demand for clean heating systems and energy efficiency by proposing new legislation. Since April this year, newly built homes will have to use zero emissions heating and cooling systems. For existing buildings, the Scottish Government has launched a consultation on a new heating buildings bill that they are planning to have in place by the end of 2024. The consultation is now open for responses until the 8th of March. I will give you a whistle-stop tour on what is proposed within this bill. Basically, the proposals for domestic properties include to prohibit the use of polluting heating systems, and the requirement to meet a minimum energy efficiency standard by the end of 2028 for the private rental sector and by the end of 2033 for owner-occupiers. A separate consultation on an equivalent standard is also underway for social housing. Now, for the private rental sector, the property should meet this energy efficiency standard before the end of 2020, even if it has a clean heating system installed. For the privately owned homes, what they're proposing is the property should meet this energy efficiency standard by the end of 2033, unless the property has installed a clean heating system by then. This new heating building standard for energy efficiency will bring many opportunities to the insulation sector in Scotland. Currently, around 45,000 householders install energy efficiency measures every year. It is estimated that this will need to increase to around 100,000 per year by 2033. It is therefore essential that the supply chain is capable of delivering at the pace and scale required in all areas across Scotland. We will see a high demand for skilled workers to support future deployment rates of thermal insulation. It is estimated that the peak full-time equivalent workforce required for energy efficiency by 2030 could be between 4,500 and 5,400 installers of thermal insulation. So how do we get there? We need hundreds of people with the right skills and qualifications to work in the retrofit sector, delivering high quality work. And this is where it is very important to have the right qualifications and skills. Ideally, we want to see energy retrofit embedded into the everyday practices of builders working in the repair, maintenance, and improvement market. Equally, it will be key to support installers through this journey by providing clarity on the qualifications and certifications that are required for accessing jobs within the sector, which is what we are trying to achieve today. And lastly, keep the sector informed of any funding opportunities for upskilling, but also funding available for their customers. The Scottish Government have funding already mechanisms in place to support energy retrofit across domestic properties, including privately owned and rented homes, alongside with social housing. Some of these schemes have been in place for several years, like the home energy efficiency programs for Scotland, the more known as area-based schemes, Warmer Home Scotland, and Home Energy Scotland Grant and Loan Scheme as well. So this longer-term approach to funding provides the certainty and continuity needed for householders' demand to grow, and in turn for supply chain actors to invest in training to undertake retrofitting. This just at the end of last year, At the end of December 2023, all local authorities in Scotland had to submit their local heat and energy efficiency strategies. These strategies will also incentivize the insulation sector and open opportunities for the sector. Through our program, we are supporting the sector with the development of toolkits. These are dedicated websites with content to enable businesses to transition into the green heat sector. Last year, we launched the Heat Pump Installer Toolkit to support combustion boiler installers to transition into heat pump installations. And at the end of 2023, we added a new toolkit for the insulation sector. The Insulation Toolkit aims to encourage the sector to upskill and gain the relevant qualifications such as the SBQ, excuse me, such as the SBQ insulation building treatments level 5 and 6, which Louise and Stephen will provide more detail on later on, and also gain the certifications required to access work that is funded in Scotland, such as the PAS2030. We also hope that this toolkit can support new businesses to join the thermal insulation sector and access the economic opportunity available in the retrofit market in Scotland. I wanted to mention that the heat and building consultation, as I mentioned before, is open. And those are events that are taking place delivered by Scottish Government to explain the main points of the consultation. And just to be eligible to take part on one of the sessions, you just need to be a homeowner or tenant of a privately owned home within the areas of Scotland covered within these sessions, and just be age 18 years or above. But the link is there, and I will encourage people to attend one of the sessions if they can, and definitely send their responses to the consultation. Remember, the consultation, the responses for the consultation needs to be submitted before the closing date of the 8th of March. And so still plenty time, a month from today, from tomorrow. And those are links if people want further information on the consultation, links to where the consultation is and to see the field document. And the last slide from me, this is just useful links for our programs. If you haven't registered already for our email updates, please do so. You have the link there, and we also will encourage you to join our LinkedIn group. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll leave you with John Rennick from ESP.
Thank you, Pilar. Just before I start, actually, just Pilar, I'd like to say that good to see the toolkit for the insulation sector being live. I think definitely a recommendation for anybody online to go and review that, because it's definitely an essential tool. So anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Before I start, I'd like to thank EST for the opportunity to participate in the skills webinar to provide an overview of the skills across Scotland's colleges for insulation. If anyone here today wants to contact me directly, my details are on the last slide. Next slide, please. So before I start, I want to give you a quick overview of who we are. ESP is a collaborative initiative involving all Scottish colleges. We were established in 2011 to lead on skills for the energy, engineering and construction sector to maximise Scotland's economic growth and job creation opportunities. We operate as a member organisation and are part funded by the Scottish Funding Council. Our primary role involves expanding current connections, forging new partnerships and advocating for greater collaboration, whether it's at a regional or national level, depending on the evolving skills needed. Next slide. This is an overview of all Scottish colleges. There are 25 colleges across Scotland, 22 construction colleges as highlighted. There has recently been another college merger. North Highland, Lewis Castle and West Highland College merged to become the UHI North, West and Hebrides colleges. These colleges operate across 13 regions across Scotland. Next slide. This is a current landscape that profiles Scotland's colleges' low carbon heat and energy efficiency courses that's currently available. I've highlighted colleges that have the capability to offer installation training in yellow. Qualifications for installation have now been standardised across the UK. It's recommended that the supply chain undertakes minimum competence in the form of recognised qualifications known as installation building treatments. As industry transitions into this sector, it's challenging to offer courses in all regions due to the low uptake. Next slide. So what's the governance in terms of recommended minimum skills needed to install insulation in Scotland? Scottish Government's Heat and Building Supply Chain Delivery Plan recommends a minimum competence for Scotland's energy efficiency and low carbon heat installations. This is known as the Installer Skills Matrix. This was developed by industry sector organisations to maintain the skills and quality of installations across Scotland, and has also been incorporated into the BSI PAS2030 standards. Next slide. This is an example of the minimum recommended competence for installation installers. You can enter the installation sector without any prerequisites or qualifications. There are optional career paths suitable to your company's needs. Stephen will go into more detail on the career paths on his slides. By following a selected path, this will give you an SCQF qualification in installation and building treatments that is transferable and recognised across the UK. This is a recommended minimum competence for installers installing insulation and will allow companies to achieve their PAS2030 and TrustMark accreditation. If anyone is working on pre-1919 buildings across Scotland, it is also recommended that they are upskilled in a 2 to 3 day short course in energy efficiency measures for older and traditional buildings. This will allow them to increase their knowledge of particular vulnerable buildings built prior to 1919 and ensure sympathetic retrofitting is carried out. Next slide, please. With approximately 2.6 million homes in Scotland, which will require some form of retrofit or fabric solutions, new or upgraded, and net zero targets, the scale of the installation task ahead is immense. Companies, councils or agencies undertaking contracts need to plan a workforce skills strategy focused on consumer quality assurance. If we don't have a qualified workforce, this may only lead to wider problems or housing defects that may have additional consequences. If we don't invest in skills, this pipeline will only become smaller and will become more challenging to find qualified and certified installers over the years to come. This will only drive prices up and lower the quality of installations, having a knock-on effect to the consumer and manufacturers. Next slide, please. Training providers have systems in place to support workforce development. They have business development advisors. Their role is to work with you to identify your current and future skills needs and will help you compile a workforce planning model. Stage 1 of this process for companies to plan their skills forecasting over a 3 to 5 year period. This may involve new entrants, upskilling or reskilling your existing workforce or taking on experienced workers. Stage 2 is to interact with your regional training provider, business development advisors. They can work with you to identify your current and future skills needs and help you compile a workforce planning model over a time period that's suitable to you. Once this is in place, the training provider will also scan for any additional funding that may be available and embed this into your skills plan. Stage 3 is for you or your supply chain to undertake training and assessment. And stage 4 is the recognition of becoming qualified, accredited and able to carry out quality of works. This may be in energy efficiency, low carbon heating systems, management or even health and safety sector. And final slide, please. That's my QR code. If you want to scan that, I'll come up with my mobile number and email address. I'll now hand you over to Stephen and Louise from West Lothian College. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Hi there, my name's Stephen Morrison. I'm one of the Learning Skills Managers at West Lothian College, and I look after the construction sector within the Faculty of Computing, Engineering and Built Environment. And I'll sort of give you a wee run through of what we're doing at West Lothian College to help meet this skills gap and how we can do that. Thanks, Rachel. So again, West Lothian, we're the only regional college in West Lothian, and we're currently redesigning our curriculum from what's been a very traditional offering in construction to be a more sustainable curriculum with a net zero focus, what we aim to deliver. And to help us do it, we've had to invest in our facilities. And this year we have opened a new eco house on campus. to aid that process. Again, this is allowing us to offer courses in green skills, including SVQs, and insulation building treatments, and some other new training being developed at West Lothian College. Again, this facility was funded through West Lothian Council's place-based investment fund from the Scottish Government. Next slide, please, Rachel. Again, it's looking at a fabric first approach and ensure buildings are suitable and are able to reduce their CO2 emissions. We need to design new buildings with the mind or retrofit existing building stock up to the required standing. And using a fabric first approach is a recommended method to look at this building as a whole. It's about ensuring that we look after building fabric before we start to add on any other additional energy saving measures. Again, looking at retrofit first, we need to ensure that the building is free from defects, and that if any are found, they're repaired. It is applying measures to buildings that have damp, major air leaks, poor ventilation, etc., or is not able to retain the heat effectively, can be counterproductive and in some cases cause more problems with the building. Once the building is defect free, and we're taking for granted that new buildings are defect free in this instance, again we can start to look at exploring some of the measures that can be put in place to reduce the heat loss from the building. About 75% of your heat loss comes through the wall, floor and roof space of the building. That's quite a large amount. In these areas we can have most impact to ensure that the fabric of the house is suitable to achieve that CO2 reduction, and then any other systems can be added in afterwards. Again, some of the measures that can be installed, we've got external wall, internal wall insulation, underfloor and roof are some examples of insulation that we can install. Again, new builds will be built with this in design. So again, extra insulation added in at the design stage and construction stage, and that should hopefully reduce the need for retrofitting in the future. Next slide, please, Rachel. And what we have done is we have now got approval to deliver the 2 SVQs in insulation building treatments, one at level 5 and level 6. Let's speak about the level 5 first. This has got 6 pathways that can be chosen to complete this qualification. This would be decided by the employer and the candidate in the college, depending on the sort of work they're doing, the scope of work that they're currently doing, and what would be best for the candidate to achieve that evidence. Each pathway has between 5 and 7 units that must be completed. And then again, you can also choose more than one pathway, and this would be done by selecting additional units. That would be agreed with the college at the time. Again, we can see the 6 pathways there. We've got wall tile replacement, cavity wall insulation, cold roof insulation, wood preserver and damp proofing, solid floor insulation and underfloor insulation as well. I've also put the link to the SQA website on this slide. I can give you further information on what's involved in the units. Next slide, please, Rachel. And that brings on to the level 6. Level 6 is a bit more in depth than the level 5, as you would imagine. It's got 8 pathways to choose from to complete this qualification, and again, the employer, candidate, college would work out the best pathway depending on the work they're currently doing on site at that point in time. And each pathway in this qualification has between 6 and 9 units that need to be achieved to complete the qualification. And again, also you can complete more than one pathway if you choose to by doing additional units, which again be agreed with the college. Again, having these various routes allows for flexibility, so the candidate and employer can get the correct qualification while doing the scope of work they're doing. And I guess a really good offering. And again, we can see the examples of the routes on offer. We've got internal wall insulation, room and roof, park homes, hybrid walls, external wall, border and finisher, insulated frame sections, and then just a border or just a finisher for external wall as well. So depending on the skill set of your workforce, there's a pathway within these qualifications that can be achieved that would help you reach your desired outcome, having competent people in your workforce. I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Louise to talk a bit more about the entry requirements and the qualification. Thank you.
Afternoon everyone, so my name's Louise, as Stephen said, and I'm going to talk to you about the entry and delivery. I've got responsibility at the college for vocational qualifications, apprenticeships and also business development. I can help with funding and inquiries around that as well. So first of all, individuals that want to undertake insulation building treatments do need to be employed or self-employed and in a role that will align with the units being undertaken for the qualification at the level they're selecting. And to ensure the qualifications alignment with the industry, the IBT has been developed collaboratively and jointly awarded with CITB. The assessment process will take place directly within the workplace, and the candidates can gather evidence directly from their actual job tasks. So that eliminates the need to come into college. Candidates will highlight their competencies and job-specific skills within their respective field of work, and they'll collect work-related evidence as part of their assessment process. Each candidate is also assigned an experienced work-based assessor who will work with them individually, and the assessor will guide the candidate in building a comprehensive portfolio that demonstrates their knowledge and competence in the sector. So the assessor's role will be to support and guide the candidate in collecting evidence. They'll also observe working practices, and they'll help them develop a portfolio content that demonstrates their understanding and their competence within their job role. They'll visit the site to conduct the observations and the assessment planning. Currently, at this moment, observations have to be on site and they can't be done remotely. That could change in the future. Next slide, please, Rachel. So at the moment, we've got some costs for the Central Belt, and as you can see, the SCQF level 5 is 1,100, and that's with a 6 to 9 months time frame, and the SCQF level 6 is 1,300 with a 9 to 12 months time frame. There's a few caveats in there. If a candidate holds an SVQ in construction and joinery, then we can look at the possibility of reducing 4 units, mapping the 4 units that they've done in their construction over to the qualification, and that would reduce the time and the achievements of the units. If we're out with the Central Belt at the moment, there will be additional costs, and we can actually price that up on request, and that would be for things like mileage, accommodation and expenses where applicable. Next slide, please. So at the moment, there's not a huge amount of available funding out there. Obviously, I spoke about the fact that we can reduce the costs for the SVQ in carpentry and joinery, but we do have one fund available at the moment, and it's for West Lothian only businesses, and it's via West Lothian Council, and it's called the Economic Development Fund. And companies can actually access up to 5,000 worth of training. So we can work with the company in supporting that application and putting that in. And really what that will allow you to do is access the funding and then put that towards the cost of the insulation building treatments. So we can look in more detail at that, and my colleague Angela Bell can actually support you with the application, so we'll put her details there as well. Next slide, please. So the next stage would be for course enrolment. So once a request for enrolment to the course is received, we'll check the assessor availability and start dates, and initially arrange a site check to ensure that the scope of work is there to cover the units required and that it aligns correctly. The assessors would then arrange an induction date and for the candidates to complete enrolment, and a learner agreement would be issued with timescales and what's expected. The course start date will then be determined from there. And as I said, the SCQF 5 is given a 6 to 9 months time frame to complete with assessor support, and the level 6 is a 9 to 12 months with assessor support. Next slide, please. And then finally, that's just our contact details. So Stephen, who you heard from, myself and sales officer Angela Bell, and we'll be able to help you with that further. I think Rachel's going to send the slides out along with a flyer around about our insulation building treatments, which will give you a little bit more details, but we can certainly help with any questions.